called a commuter OtterBox, and it's basically protects the outside, the edges, and the bottom of the bottom of the phone. But the top layer is some screen protector that's basically a layer of glass.
Okay.
So when you clean it, it's just like glass. It'll clean off instead of like the plastic covers that sometimes your fingertips, your fingerprints won't come off. Anyway, enough about the phone.
No, they're really I mean, I like this. I went to Best Buy and they got a really good deal there, with like that you can just basically pay it monthly. It's really nice.
Yeah.
Because I had to do I was definitely not out of my contract yet, so I did that.
Yeah, I waited until 2 days after my contract expired, and it still cost me an arm and a leg, which
Yeah. Okay, so chat room, you guys are available. Well, welcome chat room. I know there's a delay for a little while. Not sure what that delay is.
Well, why don't we just say, okay, type in Hockey Buzz and see how long it takes them to type it in.
There you go.
Somebody type in Hockey Buzz.
Perfect. Let's see what happens. Trying to get either Dan Petru or Ty to join us because Josh just called out. So
it's a Samsung Galaxy S5. Everybody in the chat. So they seem to be about 30 seconds behind us because they're asking if it wasn't a decent phone.
Yeah, there you go.
By the way, the Carolina Hurricanes have now become the place where all ex-Maple Leaf. There you go. It took them about 40 seconds to them getting a bunch of hockey buzzes. It took the the Carolina Hurricanes are where ex-Toronto Maple Leafs go to die because now I think they have 6 ex-Leafs on their roster. They re-added Tim Gleason today, and they signed Jay McClement last night. So now you have John Michael Lyles, Drew McIntyre, Yuri Tulosti. I mean, my goodness.
Yeah, that's a good group.
Call them the Maple Canes.
That's excellent. Hold on, let me see. Okay, so you want to give Dan a shout out, Dan Petru, because a lot of people want to talk about him.
Have his do I have his
phone number?
I can text him.
Yeah, just text him, see if he can jump on, because where are you going here? Put a movie up here, see what we can find. Let's see if we can get Dan Petru. Oh, man, this Vinny thing's a mess, kids. Vinny thing's a mess. It's still going, too, because if Nashville can get the Flyers to take this, if the Flyers will pay $2.5 million, I mean, they could have done that to Florida, but if they can get $2.5 million to Nashville, I think they like the deal better, so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know how realistic that is. I mean, maybe it's a possibility. And I don't know how much this impacts, but Jokinen signing there yesterday. I mean, maybe Jokinen isn't. We all know that Jokinen's not a number 1 center anymore, obviously, but I don't think Lecavalier is either, and they signed Jokinen for 1 year, so maybe they're not willing to take on that 4-year hit.
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it.
Yeah, it's tough.
Oh yeah, like I was disappointed in that deal. Actually, I must say, I'm not a big Jokinen fan at this point.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know what they're thinking.
It's a 1-year deal. I mean, it's a roster filler.
Yeah. No, I don't know about Ty yet. I can send Ty an invite.
Just to answer, before we start here, just one question because it's been on both of our minds the last day or so. Somebody's asking about Ott. Ott has yet to sign, and there are at least 4 teams interested in him, and perhaps more. It might be that David Legwand is holding up Ott because I think they're probably two of the top centers remaining, and they're more two-way guys than offensive guys. So I don't think they're competing with guys like Mike Ribeiro, because Mike Ribeiro is not a two-way center and never has been confused with a two-way center.
No, Mike Ribeiro is not a two-way center. All right, we should get started pretty soon. I just put out an invite to everybody who was on the show the other day, just for fun. See if somebody pops in.
I texted him. If not, we should be good.
Yeah, we should be good. We've done this before.
I've got my Luden's cough drops.
Yeah. Shot here.
Excuse me, everyone. Summer colds are the worst.
Oh, yeah. Completely.
Especially with somebody with mellifluous tones like myself.
Mellifluous.
Yes.
Very nicely done. Okay.
That's a cool. That word's a 25-cent word there. Mellifluous.
That's what you're paying for.
Yes.
For a HockeybuzzCast.
And we are not talking at all about Claude Giroux today, so don't even bring it up.
No, but I did put Claude Giroux behind me on my shelf, right there, with a Rubik's Cube. So that's my metaphor. Just so you know.
Lots of grabbing and twisting when it comes to a Rubik's Cube.
No, it's just a puzzle. It's just a puzzle. Just puzzling. That's all it means, and that's all we'll say. I think it's fine. All right, let me just put this up here, and we'll be ready to go. Got my notes over here on the side of my screen here. Yeah, Delzato. It's just, I think Delzato is going to Carolina. That's just my 2 cents.
Makes that could make sense.
Yeah, they have to do something like that. They have to do something besides bring back ex-Leaf players.
They definitely need help on defense. He'll get an opportunity.
Yeah, for sure. Too many freaking keyboards. Hate when I type into one. I've got too many keyboards going on here. All right. All right, no music today. I'm going to get the music ready for next week, though. I really want to start the music.
Okay.
I got a couple songs that were kind of funny.
Jamming with the tunes.
Yes. I think we're good to go now. Michael Jello does a great job, Bill. I agree with you completely.
Thank you, Bill. I appreciate that.
So join the chat room, the HockeybuzzCast chat room. This is a trial thing. I wanted to do this because, I've wanted to do it for a long time. A lot of the podcasts that I follow online have chat rooms, and they really are they're great resources. Because you guys combined on the internet, you guys know everything combined. So if we don't know something, the group of you will definitely know it, and if we make a mistake, the group of you will definitely let us know it, which is good.
Mm-hmm.
As long as you do it politely.
Yes. Just to answer a question that I saw in the chat because it was directed at me, Matt Quigley. Who do I think Buffalo is going after now? Absolutely no one. They're over the cap floor, and I would doubt that they're going after anybody unless something falls into their lap that they just can't turn down. I think Tim Murray is now concentrating on. Yeah, I think he's filled. They signed, and I always get this name confused because I've heard different pronunciations for the last name. It's either Tyson Strachan or Tyson Strawn. I think it's Tyson Strachan.
Yeah.
He's probably a guy who's going to probably hop between Buffalo and Rochester, but I really don't think they're going to add much.
Okay. No, I don't think so. I not at this point. I mean, they were pretty much said so yesterday at the press conference too. Tim Murray's press conference was pretty good though. I like the part of Tim Murray's. Let's start the show. Actually, let's get this thing going. We'll start about this. Let's start the show. All right. 3rd of July. It is Thursday, and I know that. I know that.
That's because July 4th is tomorrow and it's a Friday.
Right, and that's because my head is starting to clear of all these like crazy, free agents that I've some kind of hair hanging down. Sorry, it's apparently latched some of my hair onto my mic stand. Sorry, it's pieces of my hair stuck in there.
Wow.
Yeah. No, I know this because I was an idiot yesterday, and I know that now my head, it's like there's only so much RAM inside there, so now that the few I think it was Verbata signing last night. Sunday, I'm like, wow, I remember my birthday, that kind of thing. It was just completely
Eureka. Yes.
yeah. It was a sudden realization that I had that I could think again. All right, here we go. If anybody knows how to get more ROM put into your head, please let me know. Hello, Hockey World. It is Thursday, July 3rd, 2014.
I'm Michael Lagello.
And I'm Eklund, and that's it today right now, guys. And you're watching the HockeybuzzCast on HockeyBuzz.com. We are alone today. Josh has the day off. We might be joined by some hockey bloggers from HockeyBuzz. We put the word out there that anybody who wanted to come in could come in. But Mike and I have done shows by ourselves before, and we know we can talk to anyone. So we also are introducing today something really exciting. If you're watching this live, we're introducing the HockeyBuzz chat realm, which if you're on the blog, you just go to below there, and you can click and you can chat. And we see that chat. I have it right up here on my screen, right there, right next to me. It's just right there.
Yes, I see it as well. And somebody says that I sound like the voice of Doom or Darth Vader. That's probably when I was coughing. So.
No, Mike, that's how you've always sounded. So we have this up there, and the chat realm. The idea of it is it's just a fun place where people can interact throughout the show. It's about a 30-second delay, so we don't, if we're not getting right back to you on that, you understand what it is. We will check into it. We'll do questions from the chat realm at the end of the show. We'll do a couple questions, like in rapid fire form, and we might hit on you guys for some knowledge because all of you guys out there combined have proven to know everything, way more than us at least. So that's where we are. So we are at July 3rd, Mike. We have one day, but we're all heading to vacation. I know you're heading to Lake Erie.
I'm 5 minutes away from Lake Erie. That was sort of my joke. I'm heading to the shore of Lake Erie, which is 5 minutes away from me, so I'm not heading anywhere.
Oh boy. Yeah, well, I'm heading to Margate, New Jersey, right near Lucy the Elephant. So if you're down in that area this weekend and you see Lucy, you might see us because we're hanging out down there. Although my cousins have a wedding, I'm going to a wedding tomorrow. My niece is getting married, which is fine. It's the 4th of July. So we're getting married. She's getting married tomorrow, so we're going to go to that. And then, but we'll be down the shore. Got somebody staying in the house here to watch the dogs. So all is good and well. But anyway,
there should be fireworks at that wedding, right, Ak?
Oh, there's always fireworks at a wedding, Mike. But yeah, this one particularly, I don't know. Now this will be fun, and if you're down at the shore, by the way, if you ever get a chance to go to the New Jersey shore for the 4th of July, like I won't have a chance to this year, it is the most incredible thing you could ever watch because you sit on the beach there and you can watch literally the fireworks from 4 different beaches: Atlantic City, Margate, Ocean City, Wildwood, Cape May. Maybe that's even 5. And you can sit there on the beach, and you can literally sit on the beach and watch the fireworks over the ocean up to your left and to your right. It's awesome. So that's what you never know. I might get there in time to see that. But anyway, so so join in the chat room, jump in. Like I said, we'll interact at times with you guys. At other times we won't. But the bottom line is, we like that you're there, and it gives you something to talk about. If we get something wrong, feel free to let us know, but just keep it clean because, there's no warnings. You're going to be banned forever. That's just the way we roll around here. Anyway, so far people are being good.
So far is the key.
Yeah, so far. Of course, it's only been on for about 11 minutes, but that's okay. Let's continue. So, Mike, the news. First of all, yesterday, our own Josh Rimmer reported that he had talked to Mr. Rabada, who said he wasn't going to sign until tomorrow, and he signed last night. So, there you go. That's how things work in this world of ours. I don't think he expected to sign until today, in all actuality, but the Vancouver Canucks kind of sneak in a little bit, under the radar there. I was probably kind of surprised. You know what I think is interesting about the Canucks is no one really, you can tell that no one really knows Jim Benning that well as in the media. Like it's completely like what he's doing is surprising everyone along the way. And I happened to happen upon the fact that they were going after the first overall pick, and that but that was just through dumb luck and talking to some other people at the time.
Right.
And then no one really knew he was in the Bravada sweep. Everybody was talking about other teams that we knew were in the Bravada sweep. So what do you think about Bravada, Mike, in Vancouver?
Well, they spent a little more than I expected Verbata to get. They 2 years, $10 million, so $5 million annual average value. It's clear to me from the moves that Jim Benning has made that he is going to go for it in the sense of trying to make the playoffs because he's got that veteran core of the Sedins. I think Verbata probably plugs in on the Sedins line. That's the only reason I think that it would make sense to spend $5 million to sign him. They bring in Ryan Miller for $6 million over 3 years, but that's 2 short-term deals.
Yeah, it is.
And other than they get back Nick Bonino and Lucas Spiza in the Kessler deal. So it looks to me like what they're going to try to do under Willie Desjardins is sort of, after getting rid of Kessler, they're going to try to make this team, competitive to make the playoffs this year because you have so many veteran players and you really have no young players other than Bo Horvat and Hunter Shinkarik in the background that have potential to come up. They let go one of their first round picks in Jordan Schrader. They let him go as a free agent. So I think that Benning, while he tries to rebuild the organization, is going to try to get this team to sneak into the playoffs and use Miller and the Sedins to try to advance at least 1 or 2 rounds. I don't know if that's the right way to go because I think that we saw under Tortorella that there isn't that much juice left in this lemon, but we'll see.
Yeah, you can take that lemon and make lemonade, Mike. That's how it works. Yeah, I agree with you to a large extent, although only maybe because the West is so tough. Because there is definitely, if this team was in the East right now,
yeah,
the Canucks, they would be a contender. Just because of the way they're put together and the fact that they've added so much. Then they've added some really key components. Ryan Miller. He's going to be there now for 5 years, and I think that's going to help him in a lot of ways to just know that he's there, right? So,
yeah.
And you've seen what Ryan Miller can do. This team still has the Sedins, they still have Bieksa. They still have players on this team. And they are going for it now. I think that it's kind of smart because otherwise you're never going to win a Stanley Cup with this group. This is your last chance, and the Sedins maybe 1-2 more years, but at what point? Do you have to rebuild?
Yeah, and they kept Bieksa, at least at this point they have. They kept Bieksa, they kept Alex Edler. They did get rid of Jason Garrison, who I think underperformed there. They have a young defenseman like Chris Tanev, who's probably ready to step into a top 4 role with them. They're going to have a tough time getting into the playoffs. They will. If they do, they'll have a tough time advancing. But I don't think where they are right now is conducive to a complete rebuild because you just re-signed the Sedins for 4 years. You can't exactly just strip it down and trade everything because then the Sedins, you're wasting the final years of their pretty solid careers on a rebuild, and by the time you get completely rebuilt, they're probably at the end of that contract. So I think he doesn't have much choice than to, add Verbata, add Miller, and the positive thing is that the deals were short term. They weren't 6 or 7 years. They were 2 and 3 years.
Right. And that's what we've seen a lot of. We've seen a lot of the short term deal. Woohoo! We're big fans of Hockey Buzz of the short term deal because that means more free agents every summer that we can talk about. We have seen only 1 7-year deal, but it brings up a point that I know we're going to discuss Vancouver at some point. Oh, and by the way, just as an aside, I know we started talking about the teams with our wheel and things got crazy. I'm thinking of starting that over again next week, just because now that the teams have settled into their things. I think I started it too soon, so I'm thinking of starting with Toronto and Anaheim on Monday officially, and then but putting everybody back in the pot, and let's go. That'll give us. It's basically 3 weeks. 3 weeks of shows to talk about each team. So that's the plan for that. So we'll talk about Vancouver for sure, but. Are the Sedins, and this is a question for you guys in the chat realm as well, are the Sedins Hall of Famers?
Right. I think if they put together 2 or 3 more really good seasons, that they are. But I mean, they've done everything together. They were drafted back to back. They've spent their entire careers together. They're probably going to spend the rest of their careers together. Does that mean they're going to get in the Hall of Fame at the same time
Yeah, I
too?
mean,
I mean,
you
does that
can't
mean
put
that
one of them in, right? You can't put one
yeah,
Sedin in the Hall of Fame.
exactly. I mean, I don't know. It'll be weird. I mean, because it's sort of unprecedented in the history of professional sports to have like twin brothers with similar careers, almost mirror image careers that were wholly dependent on each other for their success. You could use the argument that they never proved, other than the one year that I think Daniel got hurt and Henrik won the MVP, whether they could thrive on their own rather than together. So I mean, it'll be interesting down the line. If they put 3 or 4 more good years together, I think they have a legitimate shot to make the Hall of Fame. But it'll be interesting to see what the Hall of Fame committee would do 5 years down the road.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. So in the chat room seems to agree with you for the most part. Most of them saying no, they need more time. We have filled up our chat room of 250 people.
Yes, and I like the comment of Michael Coughlin. Billy Leno will be in the Hall of Fame for the biggest thief.
Give Billy a chance, man. Give Billy a break. He was wonderful here. I know. I'm with you. But yeah. I mean, maybe not, according to them. But I mean, obviously, if they were to win a Stanley Cup or go to another Cup final, or one of them was to win an MVP, or I mean, does it have to be both of them? I mean, who's the better Steen? It's like, I've been in the locker room with those guys, and I honestly can't tell the difference. I mean, I don't watch the Western Conference, but they do look way similar. I mean, and I don't, and it's just, fortunately you have to look at their stalls to see who you're talking to. I mean, so it is, but it's hard. So it's hard for me to separate them still, but we'll see. All right, so let's get on to some trade rumors. Actually, no. Before I do that, I did have another text that came through to me. Mike Santorelli, who we've talked about, speaking of the Sedins, one of the Sedins line mates last year, one of the many, right, is still out there. And I wrote today that I kind of think he is this year's, he's just that unsung guy, it seems like the guy who's going to make them, I don't know, in my opinion, he's a steal waiting to happen. I just really feel like he is. And I would almost, call him this year's Mason Raymond, I would say that he could come into some team, and now I'm hearing talk that Detroit is interested in Santorelli, and finding out also that he's from, or he at least went to school in northern Michigan. I think Santorelli is out. I mean, Santorelli is out there right now, and I think that I'm surprised no one's taking him. He's a center too.
Yeah, he's center. He can play center, can play the wing. He's 28 years old, so he's not over the hill. He had a good year last year, but got hurt, injured his arm, and is out for and that ended his season. He played really well under Tortorella. He was, according to what a lot of Vancouver media said, he was one of the key contributors in the first half of the season for the Canucks.
And did he get lopped in with Tortorella? I think that's kind of what it felt like to me too when I talked to people. Like, he's like part of the Tortorella regime, so to speak. I don't know if that's fair, but I think that might be why he wasn't.
No, I don't think he was part of the regime. I just think his game sort of fit with what Tortorella was asking these players to do. I mean, he's sort of the heart and soul guy. He hustles. His motor is just continuing to go. I think that fits with what Tortorella is looking for from some players. That being said, I don't think that's going to hurt him on the market. I think a lot of teams are looking for energy players, and that term is limited to like guys who are fourth liners. But I think he's capable of being a top 9 forward and being an energy guy, being a spark plug. I don't think he's going to end up like Mason Raymond, because I think he'll get a contract, because Mason Raymond was offered a tryout deal with Toronto in September while the Leafs were at the rookie tournament in London, Ontario.
You're right. That was even worse. But this is not that much. I mean, I don't know if he's going to get much more than $1 million or 1.5.
Right.
Sure. which is what Raymond got eventually, and he could put up 20 goals. I think. I don't know.
In the right situation, he could be an effective scorer. He could be a secondary offensive guy. And yeah, I think that he would be a good addition, and I'm sure that there's plenty of teams out there that are kicking tires on him. They may be waiting for the prices to go down because, as we know, in the next week you're going to have the David Legwands, the Mike Ribeiros, the Steve Otts, this secondary level of free agents who are probably going to sign. Some of them will be paid reasonable salary. Some of them will still get a ridiculous amount for where they are in their career. And once that happens, then a lot of these players are going to be looking for NHL jobs and just signing one-year deals for cheap money. And I know the teams like Toronto right now, they just signed a guy out of the KHL who played for the Finnish Olympic team. They have 15 players under contract. Now, they have a lot of cap room because they let a lot of their UFAs walk, but they only have 15 contracts signed. So they're probably going to be bargain basement shopping, looking for 2 or 3 guys to add and then bring up a lot of their guys from the minor leagues. That's probably what's going to happen, and there are a number of teams like that who are going to be in similar circumstance.
Very true. And one of the other players that comes to mind when we discuss that kind of situation is David Legwand, who has been rumored today to go possibly to Toronto by Darren Dreger. Darren said they were one of the teams, but one of many teams that I've heard that are interested in David Legwand. I think that what I've heard on Legwand, it's funny because the team that could use him the most is probably the Nashville Predators, but they're not going to go back there. So, but what I've heard on Legwand that's really fascinating to me is that he's looking for second-line center money, and people are considering him a third-line center. And I think that's basically the knock right now. That's what's holding him back. And I don't disagree that he's a third-line center.
Right. Well, and the situation is that the market right now, I mean, Dave Boland's contract screwed up the market for second and third-line centers because most people think that Dave Boland is a good third-line center. The Leafs were willing to pay him almost $5 million a year. Florida ended up paying him $5.5 million. For guys like Legwand, who was the top-paid forward on the Nashville Predators for a number of years, who was basically their number one, perhaps their number 2 center for most of the time, then he gets traded to Detroit and he has to take a depth role. If he's looking for a number 2 center money, he's looking for $4 million. I just can't see anybody spending $4 million on David Legwand.
Yeah, I can't either. I really can't, and I think he's going to have to come down from that. I think Detroit's a possibility. I've heard New Jersey as well. I've heard Ottawa as well. Ottawa's obviously looking for a center right now, and having lost Spezza, they definitely need a center. He could possibly step in and be a number 2 center at times in Ottawa. I haven't heard anything about Dan Alfredsson. Some people have been asking about that. I haven't really heard anything about him at all. I heard it was Detroit or retirement, but that's just what I heard. But yeah, Legwand.
I have no.
Yeah, go ahead.
As I said yesterday, I have no proof on this other than just a feeling because the Bruins always seem to be in on things when it comes to ex-Ottawa Senators. I would not be shocked if Alfredsson and the Bruins kicked tires because as maybe the potential replacement for Iginla. You got Louis Eriksson there. You got Chiarelli there. You got Chara there, his old teammate. It adds up if he doesn't want to go back to Detroit, or Detroit is being a little chintzy on money, and they haven't been able to hit it really big in free agency right now. So I would assume that they want to bring Alfredsson back unless they think he's done.
Yeah, I agree. Let's talk Vinny Lecavalier. It was only 367 days ago that Vinny Lecavalier was signed by the Philadelphia Flyers, and they were really fired up about it at the time. I went to the press conference and everything. I asked them a question that turned out to get me in trouble because the press conference was funny. My in-laws live in Tampa. When you go to Tampa, you get on a little jetty that takes you from the terminal to your baggage claim. And on that jetty, the first voice that you would be greeted by was, "Hey, this is Vinny Lecavalier of the Tampa Bay Lightning. Welcome to the Tampa International Airport." And then when you would drive on the road down towards Tampa, you would see big Lecavalier, Stamkos billboards everywhere. So I said to him at the press conference, I said, "So, Vinny, it must be nice to come to a place where you don't have to be on the train at the airport. You don't have to be the voice on the train at the airport. You don't have to be the billboards hanging up outside." And he's like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's nice. I'm going to come to a hockey town that I can just sort of fit into the situation." So, and then right after the press conference, I was greeted by one of the Flyers' top PR guys who said, "Man, we just shot a billboard with Vinny this morning. Why would you ask that question?" So I got myself in a little bit of trouble. But Vinny, where is Vinny going to go? The idea here is the Flyers want somebody to take about half of his salary, which is, a lot. But they, the Flyers want actually to only give $1 million. Teams are asking for half the salary, is what I should say. And that's too much, at this point. And also remember, Vinny's contract is mostly paid. Like there was a big, first year deal. So he's the perfect fit for a team like Nashville or Ottawa, or a team that's looking to, not pay as much but get more salary cap money. He's the perfect fit, like Spezza was the same way. So I do think he's going to get moved. I think he will find a home. I just think I'm not sure how the Flyers will approach this beyond today, because I think today is sort of from what I've been gathering, is today's like a big day for these guys, because they're all sort of saying, well, we'll see what happens today. Then we're going to take the 4th of July weekend off and then reconvene on Monday. So I think you're going to see not a lot of stuff happening this weekend. That being said, who knows, right? Because it's Canada, and Canadians aren't celebrating the 4th of July. So we've seen 4th of July deals before. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Parise and Suter were on the 4th of July. So yeah, we've seen these things happen before. So
I think you're right.
Yeah. I remember that pretty well, because it was the morning and my kids were like, let's go to breakfast at the shore, and I'm like, I can't because Parise and Suter are signing. So yeah, that's the thing with Vinny. And now Nashville came really close and are still acting as if they could go for Vinny. When I talk to people down there, it's not out of the question. I think this is the guy that they want. They signed Jokinen, granted, but they signed him for basically the money that they want the Flyers to pick up for Vinny's contract, if you look at it. And there were also talks that they said Jokinen could play the wing, and that was an interesting thing for them to sort of slip out at their press conference. It's like, yeah, Jokinen's the center. Yeah, it's great to get center, but he's also a winger. They threw that in there. It just kind of I talked to some buddies down there, and they said, yeah, why did they say that? Because we all know they needed a center, right? So yeah, I still think I still think Nashville's in on this. I know Homer and Hexy and Poyle are good buddies. Something could get done there. Poyle's been very aggressive, very very different than Poyle in the past. So I'm not quite sure where that's going to go. But he's possible.
I think the only stumbling block here, even if they're willing to take half the salary, is the term, is the 4 years. I mean,
yeah.
It's funny because NHL teams and maybe the players themselves have learned the lesson of some of the mistakes that were made last year. If you look at the buyout guys, Ehrhoff takes a 1-year deal. Dan Boyle was not a buyout, but he was told that he wasn't going to come back. He took a 2-year deal. Brad Richards takes a 1-year deal.
Yeah.
Lecavalier, he takes a 5-year deal. Things sour because Laviolette, who was the offensive guy who he was basically hired to play under, gets fired after 4 games.
Laviolette was the big Vinny Lecavalier proponent. The reason that Briere was bought out and Lecavalier was brought in, had a lot to do with Laviolette. So yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that might be the big stumbling block for David Poyle or for anybody who's interested in Lecavalier is, I mean, I'm sure there's still motivation there for him to play. Question of whether he's going to be able to perform for 4 more years. If it was Philadelphia, I don't think that was much of a concern, because I think what they would have ended up doing is just buying him out at the end of the, I say 3 years. But for a team trading for him, that's a concern. And
it has to be.
Yeah.
And it has to be in a lot of levels. I mean, the one thing I will say is this: like, the Flyers brought him in, and originally Vinny wanted to be on Giroux's line. I talked to him; he wanted to be a winger, right? And which was surprising because he'd been a center all of his career. But the Flyers, didn't want that. They tried to put him at center, and that ended up, if he's the second or third line center, because Braden Schen's improving. So suddenly Braden Schenn gets put on the wing where he's not nearly as effective, and then Schenn gets moved to center. And this is how Vinny Lecavalier drops down the chain. He ends up now being third line center. And I don't know if they told him he was going to play with Giroux or not, but there was definitely some miscommunication there as to what was happening. And but on Nashville, he's the first line center, or the second line center for sure, and he's on the power play. And when he was given more responsibility last year, he did perform pretty well. I think it could be a good pickup. He still has the hockey sense. He doesn't have quite the speed. He doesn't always have quite the effort. But I wonder what that's about. I wonder if it's from injuries, if he's always hurt. Is he permanently hurt? Like some people think that Vinny Lecavalier is just never going to be anywhere near where he was. But he's got a lot going for him, and Ottawa's an interesting fit for me. Like I think that Ottawa would make some sense. Florida, that came close. Nashville came incredibly close to happening. So, we'll see on that one. But I would like to see it happen just because I know, and then it brings up the question of Steve Ott. People have been talking about Steve Ott, and where's Ott going to go? Where ought he go? Where ought Ott go? And Ott, yes, Ott is, I was told that, that was the Flyers' main target, and that if they could move Vinny Lecavalier, they would sign Steve Ott. Now, Steve Ott is a center again, so that's another confusing situation, but I think that they see him as a fourth-line center, and they could put him in there and, play in different ways, right? So Steve Ott, he right now, he's gonna. From what I've heard, patience is growing thin in the Steve Ott camp, and I wouldn't be surprised if he leaves Philadelphia as an option on the table now and goes someplace else. Yeah. Detroit's a possibility with that, and Toronto's a possibility with that. That's what I've been told. You've seen Steve Ott plenty, Mike. What do you think he can still bring?
He's feisty. He's a professional disturber of the highest order. He gets the thing is, he gets under teams' skins, but it's not like he's just a one-dimensional guy who just does only that. He can take face-offs. He can score. He can score to a limited. He's not going to score 20 goals, but he can score 10 to 15 goals. And for a team in Buffalo who was essentially bereft of leadership after they got rid of Vanek, he took on the captaincy, and did pretty well and was respected in the locker room, was respected in Buffalo, and then got traded along with Ryan Miller for the deal with St. Louis. I think and I'm looking from the Toronto perspective because I looked through everything from the Toronto perspective. He's a type of guy who, with the additions that they've made with guys like Leo Komarov, who would fit in well. Clarkson, Matt Fratton, who they just brought back from Columbus via Los Angeles. He would make a lot of sense because they're looking for these bottom six guys who are, provide energy and provide, some special teams ability. He can also kill penalties. He's a valuable commodity. Now he's not going to make $3 million a year.
Right.
If he's holding on to get that, then I think he's going to be waiting a while. But if he's willing to take probably a 3-year deal at $2.5 million, something in that range, then I think that there are going to be a number of suitors, and I could see Toronto as a fit. I'm sure it'd be a little weird for him because he played for the Sabres for a couple of years, but I could see it as a fit.
I can see it as a fit too. Let's talk a little bit about Grabovski and Kulemin. That was an interesting story yesterday as that flew out there. This was really. I'll tell you what I heard, and this is how close it came to going to Pittsburgh. Both of them came to going to Pittsburgh. Was that there was another trade worked out, and the Penguins were pissed because it almost happened. There was about a 3-minute window there where the Penguins were ready to pull the trigger on this trade, and then bam, it was done. And it was that close. Happening, and. But so the Penguins were suddenly, scrambling because they didn't want that trade to happen. They were trying to keep that other trade from happening because they knew they couldn't get that. They couldn't get it done,
Yeah,
we're joined by
Tony Dean.
Oh, by Tony Dean, right? Hey, Tony, how you doing? Tony's in a bit of a
dark area.
He's in a dark area. Tony, you're in a dark area, and you have a little
He's
bit of
in the witness protection program here.
Yes.
Well, while we're getting that straightened out,
I'm gonna mute Tony for a second.
Yeah. The Penguins situation. I don't know how much they were interested in Grabovski. I think they were interested to an extent, not to the extent the Islanders were, because let me just say, $5 million times 4 years. Garth Snow is Santa Claus in the Grabovski. That deal is as big a joke as the $5.5 million deal he signed with Toronto a few years ago. But,
will they both go there and suck, or will they both go there and push each other? That's the question. I mean, it's like could this be brilliant? Could this be like one of these like, wow, those guys play so well together, or could this be putting two Russians in New York, like Nikita Filatov? Like, or I think this is what I wonder.
Well, I have enough respect for Kulemin that he's not going to go there and rest on his laurels and suck. But I think he's a limited player. I mean, I know that there were a lot of criticisms coming from the Kulemin camp that said that he was not happy with his role in Toronto as a defensive forward. Well, I'm sorry, you played with the guy Grabovski, who was the playmaker who gave you 30 goals 4 years ago, and in the next 2 years you played with Grabovski again, and you scored single digits 2 years in a row. What happened? What was the great change there? So I don't think it was all of a sudden that that Kulemin lost his mojo. I think it was the fact that the 1 year where he scored 30 goals was an aberration. He's not a $4 million player. Grabovski is not a $5 million player, although the hockey analytics crowd will think he's like king of the world. But I'm sorry,
no.
He's a puck hog who sometimes does nothing with it other than hold on to the puck. He doesn't create. He's a black hole. He skates around the ice and doesn't do anything with it. So that's where your Corsi and Fenwick numbers. I'm sure Max Afinogenov had great Corsi and Fenwick numbers, but everybody who watched him in Buffalo knew that guy. All he did was hold on to the puck and do nothing with it, and that's not exactly good. But
exactly.
Yeah.
I agree with you, and that's that isn't good. And but man, these two are such. I mean, Kulemin's a good defensive player.
Yes.
We'll give him that, right? But he actually almost scored 30 goals 1 year. Grabovski had a hat trick in the opening game of the season last year and just took off, and everybody thought he was going to score 240 goals, and he didn't. He scored 18, I think, 13.
He disappeared in the second half, and then he got hurt. So
right.
He was only making $3 million for a team that needs a number 2 center, and they in Washington, and they showed absolutely no interest in re-signing him. So that should give you an indication of how effective he was. I mean, from what I heard. The whole thing with Pittsburgh, because Kulemin's agent came out today, said that he really wanted to play with his buddy Malkin in Pittsburgh, but the problem was if the two were a pair going together, Pittsburgh is pretty set with Crosby, obviously, is the number 1. Malkin is the number 2. Brandon Sutter is an RFA, is the number 3, is a good two-way player. And the only way it would have made sense to bring in Grabovski is if they would have traded Brandon Sutter. And that's been rumored a little bit, but it's probably, it probably is not, it probably couldn't happen in that small window of time. And they weren't going to sign Grabovski and have Sutter on the roster because then they wouldn't be able to get enough for him because they're in a pickle because they'd have too many centers.
Exactly. No, I agree with you completely. They are in that pickle. I did just get word that that Del Zotto and the Devils are talking to each other. Just got a text on that one. I could see this being a Lou Lamoriello type of play. Like Lou's very good at getting a Camilleri type players. Look at who Lou signed last year. I mean, was it last year that he signed? He signed that kid from the Rangers, and man, why can't I think of him? I get hold on. I can tell you right now. Lou has for as crazy as Lou is about his, and I love Lou Lamoriello. I mean, he's one of the best people in all of hockey. He's really good at getting stuff out of guys like Ryan Clough. That's what I was thinking of.
Yeah.
All right, so look at the guys they have. They have Jágr. They have Damian Brunner. They've got Michael Ryder.
Yeah.
They've got Ryan Clough.
Yeah.
And they've got Michael Camilleri. What do all these guys have in common? They're all a mess. I mean, these are players who have been completely disasters in other places. You
Yeah,
know,
but
on
I
defense,
think.
they've got Marek Zidlicky. I mean, they really have put together a team of, and remember, this is the team that had Ilya Kovalchuk on it. So we're talking about, like, they really have put together. It's a fascinating situation.
Well, I think they're sort of following sort of the Moneyball Oakland A's type of thing, where it's not where if you can get a player undervalued and you can plug him into a system, then it's a positive move. Now, if they can get Michael Del Zotto, who Michael Del Zotto is sort of a one-dimensional defenseman. He's not particularly good defensively. He's good offensively. Um, if you can get him on a one-year deal for say $2 million,
Yeah.
and get your value out of him, and then either if you're in contention for the playoffs, you keep him, and if not, then you flip him at the deadline and get something for him, and all it did was cost you money. Then it makes all the sense in the world. It's good asset management, and Del Zotto will be motivated going to New Jersey because he can stick it to the Rangers 4 or 5 times a year, after them, and stick it to Alain Vigneault, who basically didn't see him as a useful piece. I'm sure Del Zotto would have liked to have been part of that team that made the run to the finals, but getting a guy like Klein, who's more of a stay-at-home defenseman, more.
All right, so there's also. I mean, there are people in the chat room that are saying things that, yes, I shouldn't say that Camilleri's been a mess wherever he's gone, but the thing that Camilleri and these other players have in common is that they've had, okay, this is the way I'm going to put it. They've had successful seasons with teams who haven't wanted to bring them back, and this is like they all have the same. And not to mention, and they brought up really well. Tulane Flyer and Kyle Ferguson brought up, what about Havelock? I mean, we're talking about they have another guy. I mean, these are all players who are skilled. They're really skilled players. They're all successful. They all have had years where normally a team would definitely sign them to another contract, and teams have ran from them. Like Camilleri has scored 30 goals in places like L.A., in Montreal, and Calgary, and teams have run from him. I mean, they tried to get Camilleri back in Calgary. That this time they did, but they have that. They ran Yager, and it's so. And Del Zotto is another one. I mean, how can you just let Del Zotto go? I mean, he was really, the Predators are, granted they have a lot of great defenders, are letting Del Zotto go.
Yeah. I don't get it. I don't get it. And yeah, and not to cast aspersions against the Devils, but if they're going to be sort of the scrap heap of the NHL, picking up players here and there and willy nilly to fit in, have sort of fits in that with a 1 year, $1.5 million. Maybe that's the place where Danny Heatley lands. For somebody for 1 year, $600,000 a year contract. He plays on the third line. Something of that nature. That's the type of moves that Lamoriello has been sort of making the last couple years in the wake of Kovalchuk leaving. They've just been plugging in these guys into holes.
Yeah, in any way they can. And but at the end of the day, you know what? The Devils are always in the hunt. The Devils would have been a playoff team last year if they could have won a friggin' shootout along the way.
Yeah. If they won 5 or 6 shootouts, they were in the playoffs.
Yeah, so what Lou does with these players does work. I mean, Ryan Clo's effective. Tony's back. Can you hear us, Tony?
I can now, sir.
Okay, good. Yeah, thanks for jumping in. Yeah, so I mean, you're talking about there's a lot of players, on this team, and yet, Lou finds a way. Now, if Del Zotto goes there too, that's another one of those players. The thing is, how long will Lou Lamoriello be there? If I was the Devils right now, I would have gone after Olli Jokinen. Jussi Jokinen in a big way, for several reasons. One, because I think he brings the kind of Devils hockey that they're lacking without guys like Parise there or Gianta or the players from the past. But 2, he's a killer shootout player. And if you're the Devils, you need that's what Boland and Jokinen in Florida are, 2 really good shootout players that were brought in And if you think about Florida's chances in the playoffs next year, Boston's making the playoffs in that division, right? I think Toronto's making the playoffs. Those two teams are in the playoffs in my mind. After that, is Montreal a playoff team? Probably. But can Florida challenge them? Is Tampa a playoff team? Probably. But, there's certain situations I think that, in my mind, I think Florida's got a shot because they're going to get 4 or 5 more points by winning the shootout. Likewise, and the counter to that is this. The Flyers re-sign Ray Emery, and I get the re-signing Ray Emery, and I liked what Hextall said about it's important to have 2 goalies that really like each other, that get along in the locker room, that really play well together, and they do, Mason and Emery, and that's important. But the Flyers can throw away a couple points next year if Emery's in goal and they go to a shootout. It's not gonna, they're gonna lose. Emery can't go side to side. If the Flyers don't consider putting Mason in those shootouts, I think they're insane. That's my opinion, because those points are going to be really important. And yet you don't see teams do that very often, you don't. But Emery just doesn't have the side-to-side movement to win a shootout,
Well, I think Florida is dramatically improved, but I think the dramatic improvement's going to be because they have Luongo and net. I still think he's a difference maker. I mean, I don't know how much longer he will be, but I think next year, especially having and wanting to prove something in Florida, and the growing of guys like Huberdeau and Barkov, along with the veterans they've added, I think they'll be a tougher team to play against. Yeah. But let me ask Tony something, because the Wild sort of we talked on July 1st about the concern about the Wild in terms of their goaltending. They haven't done anything yet. There's still the situation with Kemper, with Harding, with Backstrom. I mean, is it going to just be status quo with the Wild? Are they just going to stay with those 3 guys, or are they going to bring in somebody else?
First of all, good afternoon, gentlemen. I saw the numbers for Hockey Buzz, so congratulations, Zach. I think we had a very good July 1st.
Thanks, we sure did. Appreciate it.
I definitely know that in the state of hockey in Minnesota, the signing of Vanek, I believe, was the first domino for Chuck Fletcher. And in addressing the goalie situation, it's a tough thing to do because we're without a lot of information, and it's the type of information that doesn't get leaked out, or it's very tough to have a source on when it's a medical issue. So there's medical issues with both Backstrom and Josh Harding. Backstrom had multiple surgeries. I think sports hernia or groin, but he's also had hip issues. And then with the actual absence of Harding last year, he was arguably the best goalie in hockey for the first 2 months of the season.
Yes.
And then we didn't see him much. He made a couple appearances.
Oh. Yeah. No, he's right. We lost him there, but Tony did bring up a good point before he was zapped into the internet sphere. Hopefully Tony's okay wherever he is. But yeah, they make some really good points. And I agree with him on that. I honestly think that when you look around, there's going to be backup goalies that are going to just be out there. They're going to be available. So you might as well start with what you've got and see how they're doing, and see how they play out. If they play out okay, then you can stay with them. But for now, I agree with that.
And one of the I know it came up near the deadline last year that one of the scenarios, one of the potential destinations for Marty Brodeur was Minnesota. I mean, I don't know if Zach Parise being there makes any sense, or makes any more of a likelihood that he
really those rumors were Zach Parise. That was Zach Parise trying to get something going. That everybody was reporting that Marty Brodeur, especially in the New Jersey media, were reporting that we're talking to Parise, who was saying, yeah, we've got interest, but honestly, at the end of the day, that really wasn't a thing for the Wild.
Yeah, and until the situation that Tony was talking about gets straightened out, I don't think they're going to add a goaltender, because you don't know whether Backstrom is going to come back 100% with as he said, these multiple surgeries. You don't know where Harding's health is. If he's healthy and look at the way he played last year, then they're in good shape. And Kemper is a young goaltender who seemed to thrive when he was played. So until that situation is a little more clarified, then probably any veteran goaltender is not going to go there and try to jump into that situation.
Right. Back, Tony. Are you okay? We were worried about you.
Yeah, I don't know how much I got through, how much I
But
did.
you got through a lot. You got through enough. That was good. I really appreciate it. We're going to take some questions now because we are up against the end of the show here. Now we got the chat realm going. So, and I will throw this out too. I've heard Mike Santarelli is talking to the Rangers as well. So, got that text just a second ago. So yeah, so we'll see how that plays out. He's kind of a good fit, and sort of a little bit of there's some similarities between Santarelli and
Dominic Moore
or Pouliot. Yeah, I would say like the guy they lost. I think that a little bit smarter player, but we'll see.
I mean, the Rangers have lost their entire fourth line, Ak. I mean, they
they lost a lot, and that fourth line was the depth that got them through the playoffs. I mean, between them and everybody else was that they had depth.
I mean, Brian Boyle's gone to Tampa. They traded Derek Dorsett to Vancouver. Pouliot's gone to Edmonton, so they need to replace them with probably inexpensive veteran guys. So that would make sense.
All right, so let's go to our first question. We have if you go to the chat realm, you can enter in. We have 244 people in there right now. I know it's a $250 person limit. That's because that's the biggest plan I could buy or afford on a trial basis. If you guys really like this, we could probably do something more with it. But I think 250 people is a lot in there, and so maybe we'll do like a first come first serve thing with it. So Armailne72 asks, with Winnipeg needing a new center due to Jokinen leaving, do you see Vinny going to the Jets? Also, the Jets have interest in Coburn. Do you see this leading to a trade for possibly Byfuglien? I know the Flyers have huge interest in Byfuglien, that he's definitely on their radar, has been for over a year now. Coburn would absolutely be involved in that. He would definitely be the guy they would move out. Edmonton's talked to the Flyers about Coburn. That almost happened last year at the draft. Came really close to happening. A lot of people thought it was done. I don't see the Flyers going after Evander Kane. I know you didn't ask the question, but a couple people have asked me that before, and I think the Flyers are more. And Evander Kane's done some things in the past couple days that have really soured. Like there were two camps on Evander Kane in Philly, as there usually are in Philly about players. And the one camp, really wanted to go for it, and the other camp was like, he's got issues and he's not the greatest person or whatever, or guy or whatever. So now the couple things he's done recently, favoriting the Flyers, tweeted that you should go to the Flyers, being one of them, then sending a picture out about the Claude Giroux situation being another. This is not how you get into Philly. That's all I can say. The Flyers are not interested in another player that could be a problem. There's a reason, certain guys aren't here anymore that are good players. So go ahead.
The other thing was with when we talked to Tessier when the Matthew Perrault signing happened, he seemed to be pretty excited about that signing, and they also have Shifley and Brian Little as well. So I'm not sure if there's a huge need at center for them, but I know if they're going to move assets, they're going to look to get assets.
Yep. All right, let's go to Tulane Flyer, who asks the situation with Vinny. How much cap and over how long can the Flyers eat it? Is it just half per year? Is it the AAV or actual? Can they eat the half based on the signing bonus situation? Is this calculation problem part of the trade issue? Yes, and yes. It is all those things, and I'm not a capologist, but it is. I know the reason it didn't happen on the first day was because the Flyers owed him $1 million. So I'm assuming that all the Flyers can do, and this is what I've been told at least, and I'm not 100% sure, and there's somebody in the chat room might know better than me on this, or you might know, Tony, too. What I've been told is all that matters is the money that's left on the contract right now. Anything the Flyers have paid does not count towards anything that comes off of Nashville. So if he's owed X amount of millions of dollars, even though his cap hit is what it is, and the Predators want him to take half of that, but basically is what I was told. The Flyers are looking at that like, well, this, it's the cap hit is what it is, but the money to Lecavalier goes down. So I think that's too much for the Flyers. I think the Flyers are looking more at possibly a third, but I don't think any more than a third would ever happen with Philly. I think that they would just keep Vinny and make he's not a terrible player at all. He's just they would like to use that money towards a different kind of player, but
yeah, he's got $15.5 million left on the last 4 years of his deal, so they would probably have to pay half of that over the 4 years, which is a little under $2 million per year.
Right.
To get any nibbles. And again, like I said, the term is the problem.
And so I think the most recent example of keeping money was probably Versteeg from Florida to Chicago.
Right.
And being honest about it, that the character in Vinny Lecavalier, his history, his pedigree, I wonder if the tinkering with the Flyers, maybe they don't do it, and maybe they leave him on the roster and let this group gel together.
I think that's where they are now. But I think that they still have some feelers out there. They still have some things being discussed, so it's not impossible that they do it. But I think mostly that's where they are now. Let's see. No Rot 1 asks, does Bobby Ryan stay in Ottawa or get traded by the trade deadline? I think Bobby Ryan is going to be top and center of our trade deadline discussions this year. I think there's no question about that. Where he goes, who knows? Where he signs next year, who knows?
Perhaps even sooner. I mean, they may start the year with him, but I mean, from all indications, Ottawa is on that Connor McDavid track as well. Because
one of the other guys, and one of the top three would be great in Ottawa, so that's the issue, right? So
right, because that's a guy. Ottawa has as much trouble as Edmonton and Winnipeg attracting free agents, and if you can get a franchise player drafted, you can hold on to that guy for 7 years at least. So
too, gentlemen. I've been sniffing around Bobby Ryan rumors and stuff like that a lot, just because of the tie to Chuck Fletcher and what he brings. He's in the age group, and a lot of Ottawa people that write and follow the team, they believe that that's their franchise player. So a lot of it probably will have to do with if he's willing to take all the money that they're offering there. Yeah.
No, they are very high on Bobby Ryan in Ottawa. I mean, and they traded a lot to get him. And there's no question that is the case. But I do agree with Mike too that they are also not exactly gearing up to win this year. And it seems as if, although that being said, they are not a bad team. They could win, and there's situations. Mike, you're shaking your head. Do you think they are a bad team?
I think they're a severely limited team without Spezza, and I believe Craig Anderson's in the last year of his deal, and he's another guy who, for a team that needs a goaltender, and we've seen Craig Anderson stand on his head and be a difference maker one year, and then just be a sieve the next year. So, he may be singing for his supper and probably playing as well as possible to get another contract. He might be an attractive piece for another team. So it all depends on what they do early in the year. They could want to go with their young goaltending, Robin Lehner, in net, and if they do, then they may trade Anderson as well.
And the other point I think that needs to be made is the brand of Ottawa Senators hockey has taken a hit with the handling of the Alfred situation, and maybe a refusal to spend money there, and now Spezza leaving. Is Bobby Ryan going to sign on to being there long term? Is he going to allow them to know that he's going to test the free agent market like we saw with Vanek? So if he allows them to know that he's going to test the free agent market, I think that's when they have to make a decision on moving him and getting as much back in return.
Agreed. Let's take another question here. Brendan McLean, who asks, could Del Zotto be a fit in Detroit for the top 4 D-man they are looking for? If not, who do they go after to fill that role? I do think Del Zotto is a good fit for Detroit. They definitely need that kind of defense, and they are very upset that they didn't get they thought they were going to get Boyle. Then they thought they had a really good shot at Niskanen, and they thought they had a shot at Ehrhoff, and they didn't get anybody. They need defense. Del Zotto is worth a flyer for them, I think. But again, that being said, I haven't really heard many rumors about that. I've heard Del Zotto to other teams. So, but if I was Detroit, I would go for it. I just haven't heard. I mean, Del Zotto is interested in many teams, so maybe the Red Wings are one that I just haven't heard. That's always possible.
I mean, Keith Yandel might make some sense for Detroit in terms of them looking for an offensive defenseman to sort of replace what they've lost. And don't get me wrong, I'm not putting Keith Yandel in the same category as Nicholas Lidstrom. I'm just saying, an offensive defenseman who could pick up that offensive burden on the blue line. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know where Detroit is going right now. I mean, other than re-signing Kyle Quincy, that's sort of an inconsequential move. I don't think I think he's an okay defenseman, but I don't think he's worth $4.5 million.
It's been pretty stark.
Yeah,
to watch.
he's not. He's definitely not.
It's been pretty stark to watch Detroit not be a top free agent destination the last couple of years, and seeing them have to go for kind of twilight of their career veterans. So the other question I would ask is Del Zotto even interested in going there, or do they have to address their needs via trade with some of those young players they've been cultivating in Grand Rapids?
Well, the problem is that you've got that young Grand Rapids group, and you've got the elder statesmen like Datsuk and Zetterberg. There's nothing in between, and I think that is a little bit of a problem because most of your money is being paid to those top end guys who are in their early to mid 30s, and their production is going to start to go down. Also, like I said yesterday, and Kevin Allen agreed, is that the status of Mike Babcock as a coach. I mean, with 1 year left, and he's made hints that he's probably not going to renew his contract with Detroit. I mean, you don't really want. A lot of players may not want to go to Detroit because they don't know where that organization is going to be next year after Babcock, if Babcock leaves.
And I think that's a very real thing. I mean, I think Babcock will leave. I've heard that enough at this point, and that's even if it's not true, it's the perception right now, which is sometimes reality in the NHL. We are out of time though. It is 2:00. We really appreciate you guys jumping in the chat room. Really appreciate Tony jumping on. Thank you, Tony. We'll get Tony some good lighting someday. Don't worry.
It's on layaway. It's on layaway.
People are calling you the new anonymous hockey blogger. Yeah. But you're just a little silhouetted there. But that's okay. It doesn't really matter. You bring great stuff, and we really appreciate it. We'll be back again on Monday. So we won't be broadcasting tomorrow. It'll be our first weekday we've missed in forever. We've done about 100 shows now, Mike, and that's kind of shocking, kind of a shocking thing.
Yeah, I looked back at the first episode and compared to the way we are doing it right now, and it's the improvement has been dramatic, Ak.
For sure. I hope so, at least. You would like to think that after 100 shows we would be improving a little bit.
I wouldn't say it if it wasn't true.
Yeah. It was good stuff. Good stuff. Thanks in the chat room. We really appreciate it. If you guys like the chat room, let us know. We will stay with it and even increase the limit perhaps. But I think for now we're going to stay at 250 for a couple weeks and see, because that's a pretty good sum there, and we're gonna per month. But we can always do more. We'll talk soon. Thank you very much thanks for everybody in the chat room. Thanks everybody for watching the HockeybuzzCast on HockeyBuzz.com, and make sure you have a good, solid, safe holiday weekend in the United States. And if you're in Canada, whatever, have a good weekend. Enjoy tomorrow, and pretend it's start your own podcast for tomorrow in Canada, just so you can actually people can
enjoy your Friday.
Enjoy your Friday. You are not required to watch tomorrow's show. You're allowed to go about your life and do your own things. All right. See you soon. Remember, without the buzz, it is just hockey. Talk to you then.